Hello and welcome to Not Your Status Quo's spoiler-filled review of Captain Marvel. Remember, if you like what you see, please subscribe, click the like button, and hit the bell for future videos.
Going to Yon-Rog's room and starting to spar. He's telling her she should keep her emotions in check, and they find out they get called to the Supreme Intelligence, and we find out that Carol sees Annette Bening as the Supreme Intelligence, and she has a mission for them.
And that's Wendy Lawson that she's seeing. And her mission is to go to the planet Torfa, I always mess that up, and go there and extract a Kree spy that they have against the Skrulls. And there's locals there that they're not supposed to mess with. Well, we get there, we find out that the locals are the Skrulls, and Veers gets captured.
And we find out that the Skrull leader, Talos, is the machine where they can read their thoughts, and he's in her head and he's trying to figure out what she knows. And I think, Dave and I agree, it's not overly obvious, but they went to get her. This whole catching the spy and getting him was to get their hands on Veers because they knew she was something different.
Yeah.
And they're reliving the thoughts of Wendy Lawson, her time back on Earth with Maria Rambeau. At this point, we're not really sure why, but Carol Danvers escapes. The ship crashes on Earth.
And well, that's where the iconic scene from all the commercials. He crashes into the billboard, and that scene coming out.
Blockbuster.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the billboard. It's not the billboard of the Blockbuster. It's the actual store. Anyway, she comes out and she talks to the security guard at the place, and she gets that scene is quite funny, I think. And so she's there until the next morning when she is. This very security guy that she talked to has called it in. And it's funny, right when they get there, they go, "Hey, Rook, why don't you go ask the guy who called it in?" And it's Clark Gregg. It's Agent Coulson. I think that's pretty cool.
Yep. Then she starts to work with Fury. There's a Skrull loose that shoots at her. She goes chases him. There's the whole train scene that happened. It was really well done. I loved it. Then she starts working with Fury to find out who Lawson is. She's remembering this. She needs to find out why. So they end up going to Project Pegasus, and
they find that Maria Rambeau is a person on a file that they found in the records department, and she must be the only person alive. She was the last person who saw them two alive. She must know who she is and what her past is.
So they find Maria Rambeau and her daughter Monica. And they're talking to her, and Talos shows up, and there's a little, talk. He just wants to talk to her because he finds out what he is.
Good exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. We find out that, the Skrulls are kind of the good guys here, and they're looking for Mar-Vell. We find out Annette Bening is actually playing Mar-Vell, which is, I thought a pretty cool thing. I didn't expect it. Mm-hmm. And they're looking for her lab because, they have what we think they're looking for is the Lightspeed engine that they're working on.
But what it really is there's a batch of Skrulls. I don't know what else to call them. A gaggle of Skrulls.
A murder of Skrulls.
A murder of Skrulls that are living on this Kree warship that she does all of her work on, and that's where she's keeping the Tesseract. And we find out that's what Talos was really looking for, was the people, and one of them was his wife, and it was his family, 3 of them.
Yep. Then the Kree show up with Yon-Rog leading them. There's a big scuffle and a fight. Carol ends up getting captured. And then as she's communicating with the Supreme Intelligence, she ends up destroying the Kree implant that is keeping her powers in check.
And once she does that, she just becomes the ultimate superhero. And she's finding all of her powers during the fight. And that's the best part. And then there's Yon-Rog where he falls from the spaceship and she lands on top of it. And as they are flying down to Earth, so he can go down there and he can kill Nick Fury and Maria, she falls off the ship. And during that fall, she realizes, I don't know if she realized it or if she just let go, but at that moment, pling, her light comes on. I don't know what to say. It's her eyes. And then she's just whole new person. She's realizing that she can fly through ships. She can fly through. She can fly, period. And she's pretty much indestructible.
Yeah, and we get that at the end of, she basically destroys one of the accuser's ships all by herself. And Ronan says, well, let's get out of here, but we'll come back for the weapon. and we think they're talking about the Tesseract, but he's talking about Captain Marvel. I thought I really liked that scene.
And that could be another scene. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, so I'll say that for later. And at the end there, they're all sitting around the table and they're discussing what they're gonna do. And Carol offers herself up to help find the Skrulls a new world to live on.
And then we get the first post-credit scene, which, really hyped up my wanting of Endgame to get here soon. Basically, we see Black Widow, Captain America, and the pager that Nick Fury had set off at the end of Infinity War in the post-credit scene stops working. And so they're all talking about it. They had hooked up a separate battery, and then Captain Marvel is standing behind him and says, "Where's Fury?"
Oh, that scene got me so choked up. I mean, I was like, yeah, I just wanted to get up in the theater. I saw the movie 5 times, and I wanted to do that every time. And for the second after credit scene, it's Goose. He comes up and he coughs up like a hairball, the Tesseract, which is awesome. Obviously it's left on Fury's desk, so how is he not going to find it? And then, of course, take it from there. So for my review, I've seen this movie 5 times now, so it's obvious that I like it. I like how from the very start of the movie, she, and I'm just going to say this, she is the superhero, the positive Superman type superhero that, the superhero world has been needing. She's very positive in every battle scene. She's supremely confident. She's always smiling and laughing, except for the parts where she's actually figuring out her past and everything. And, even after that, once she figures it out, she's happy. And she handles the whole movie so great. It's like nothing is going to stop her, and she's just going to do what she needs to do, even when she didn't have her memory in the beginning of the movie. I like the Nick Fury thing. This is the softer side of Nick Fury before he becomes a hardened spy. Or we have a theory later that might blow your mind. I tell you what, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Definitely excellent movie.
Try to keep up.
Review, I thought we got some extremely strong performances, not only from Brie, but Ben, Sam, Jude, Annette. Seriously, everyone in this film I think was tremendous. I really liked the non-linear storyline with her origin. I thought it played well. It was one of the better origin stories in the MCU, not the best.
Can I just throw one thing in there?
No.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No, I just like how we were learning about her as she was.
Yeah, that worked very well. We got some history of the MCU. We saw Coulson and Fury when they were much younger agents. We find other alien races are looking for the Tesseract, which I think definitely makes sense. And then, I think some of the things that worked, when she didn't have her memories, she wasn't just wandering around looking lost all the time. She had the training that she got from the Kree, and she was just moving it forward. And as her memories were coming back, she was gaining more power and everything. There was no love interest in this movie. I thought that was huge, that there was no love interest for her. She was basically a warrior, and she did what she needed to do to get the mission accomplished. CGI was amazing. I thought that was great. Some of the negatives, I thought she was a little overpowered at the end. In the comics, to go binary, she needs to take in a lot of energy. It just seemed like she was able to destroy a accuser ship by herself without really giving up much. Some of the song choices were a little too spot on, like playing No Doubt. And this might be because I'm not a big fan of No Doubt, but I'm Just a Girl when it's playing. It wasn't my favorite. I didn't like how Fury lost his eye to Goose. I know it's going to kind of be probably a joke later when Captain Marvel explains to the Avengers how he actually lost it. They're probably going to get a huge laugh out of it. But none of those negatives detracted from how much I really did enjoy this movie. Those are all little nitpicky things. And I give this movie an 8.1 out of 10.
This war is just the beginning.
Other items of note.
How did Mar-Vell obtain the Tesseract? Well, we're guessing that at the end of Captain America, where Howard Stark is actually searching for Captain America, he finds the Tesseract, brings it back up, and that's how Mar-Vell gets her hands on it to do the studying. And another interesting item is that back in Iron Man 2, when Tony's asking Jarvis for files on Goliath, Exodus, and Pegasus. We know what Goliath is. We know what Pegasus is now, which is...
It is a joint NASA and Air Force to develop a Lightspeed engine, which using the Tesseract.
Very interesting. Now we don't know what Exodus is. Maybe that's Phase 4. I don't know if they're calling it Phase 4, but maybe that'll come up next. You don't know.
You know, just also the building at the beginning of the Avengers was Project Pegasus. So the Tesseract was still there even after the end of this Captain Marvel movie.
And that's 17 years later.
And then another thing, for those of you that don't know, Monica Rambeau, the daughter of Maria Rambeau, in the comics, you know, she turns into Spectrum, where she can basically become any energy at will. And so that scene at the end where they're sitting around the table and she said, "Oh, I'm going to shine like Auntie Carol or fly a ship." You know, I thought that was a nice little nod to her, you know, powers in the comics. And hopefully we see her get her powers maybe in Avengers Endgame.
That'd be kind of cool to see her in Avengers Endgame. She is 23 years older.
Yeah.
And another thing was the Flurkin, the Kitty Flurkin, the fight scene that they had from, it was basically from around the corner, but it was just like Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy when they were on the Kree ship and he just, you know, like sliced into those guys and turned around and he was smiling on his face. It was the same kind of thing where the Flurkin grabbed the people and brought them back. Yeah, I think he ate them.
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah.
They're dead. And then, you know, another big thing was the Skrulls being the good guys. You know, Talos had said that the Kree drove them from their homeworld, and, you know, maybe that was to just gain sympathy with Carol and Fury so they would feel better about him, because in the comics, and we go back to the comics quite a bit, Galactus actually ate their homeworld, and then they were on the run and weakened. So this could be just the beginning of them rising back to power. Well, 23 years ago, them rising back to power. So I don't think Secret Invasion is completely off the board, but this definitely threw it for a loop.
So in this movie, we learn how they, I keep seeing it called the 11-year mystery, how Fury lost his eye, and how last time he trusted someone, he lost an eye, and it was just the Flurkin, you know? And of course, at the end, when, why can't I think of his name? Coulson comes in with the theory, you know, he's not going to confirm or deny because he's got to be a badass, you know, so... Yeah.
And he definitely does not want this truth to get out.
No.
And when it does, I think the Avengers are going to get a very good laugh out of it.
Pretty good.
You know, and one of the things that was really just so well done is that Stanley montage at the beginning of that film.
Yeah.
I mean, having him be a part of the credits where you see the superheroes, but you see all of his cameos instead. I mean, that was just, you know, we had heard that there was something great for Stanley at the beginning. I don't know if I was prepared for that. And it really was just bringing up a lot of emotions with him just passing, and just completely well done, and Marvel just nailed it.
And you know, some of those in there weren't just as cameos either. There was a scene of him just like holding his arm around Robert Downey Jr., you know. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very moving.
Yes.
We see at the end of the movie where in that same scene where they're talking about how he got his eye cut out, he's typing up the Protector Initiative, and then he looks on the picture of Carol Danvers from her flying days and said her nickname was Avenger. So you see him go back and retype that name. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was definitely cool. And now for wild theory alert. Stick with us for a minute and just kind of hear us out, because I do think this movie could set up Secret Invasion, because when they are escaping off of the Kree warship at the end to get away from, you know, he got his family and he's trying to get out of there. You know, he says cover his daughter's eyes, and he doesn't want them seeing people getting shot. Well, she doesn't close her eyes. And there's a very good possibility that perhaps that is Vernaki, who, you know, is a fictional supervillainess created by Brian Michael Bendis for Secret Invasion. And she is the queen of the Skrulls and the main antagonist of Secret Invasion. So that very well could be setting that up. And they never name her in this, so if they decide not to do it, they could also pull it back. Yeah. But I think that would be a great way to tie, if we do see Secret Invasion in Phase 4 or the next phase or just post-Phase 3, because Dave, I think, mentioned earlier, we have no idea if they're going to still stick with the whole phase thing. It would be a very good way to kind of bring it all together, because they do try to keep some, you know, pieces all fitting together in all these movies. So if she turns out to be Vernaki and leading the Skrulls into Secret Invasion, that would be pretty damn awesome.
There's a scene where they're all in Maria Rambeau's house, and they turn around and there's Talos drinking a soda, and it's kind of a throwback to Sam Jackson in Pulp Fiction, saying, can I drink this beverage to wash this down? You know, it's pretty good.
You know, we also see Fury and Coulson in a car, which is kind of reminiscent of John Travolta and Jules Verne from Pulp Fiction. A couple Pulp Fiction, references we saw there. And then one of the things that I think it's time for Wild Theory Alert again to go
Ding,
off,
ding, ding.
if we had an alarm of any kind. But if you remember when Carol is interviewing Fury to find out if he's a Skrull, she says, "Tell me something totally crazy that no one will ever know." He says, "I cannot eat my bread when it's cut diagonally." We're about to see a clip from Age of Ultron where he does do just that.
Well, I contacted our friends at the Nexus.
That made me think. There's a scene in the movie, not that particular thing, but when they're talking and getting to know each other, and he says like, they call me Fury. He goes, "What does your mom call you?" "Fury." "Everyone calls me Fury. No one calls me Nick. They don't call me Joseph, not Nicholas, just Fury." All right. So there's other times in the movies.
What do you call your mom?
Fury. So throughout the whole MCU, there's been other times. Alexander Pierce calls him Nick. Maria Hill at the end, the post-credit scene of Endgame, or not Endgame, sorry, Infinity War, calls him Nick. So are these people, is Maria closer to him than others, or is there something going on where I thought maybe all these people were Skrulls?
And that does, because in the movie, he figures out that Ben Mendelsohn's character is a Skrull.
Because he calls him Nicholas.
Nick. Yeah, Nicholas.
Yeah.
I have a coworker, Lauren, who has a theory also. It's a little different from his. She thinks that Fury, I don't want anyone to think I'm a Skrull out there, made a deal with Talos to, if anything ever happens to him, to come back and impersonate him on Earth. And Fury actually died in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And then Talos came back, and he has been Nick Fury since then. And
I like the theory, Lauren.
it's definitely good. And then we were talking today, and she was like, "What if Maria Hill is also a Skrull?" Because she's pretty close to him. You think that if they had this plan, she might be in on it, because she's definitely his right-hand woman. So she might be in on it. She might be a Skrull also. Could they help if there is a secret invasion in the next series of the MCU? We won't call it phases. Maybe it can be Skrull against Skrull. Good Skrulls versus bad Skrulls. And then finally, the last thing that we noticed in this film is, you'll notice, like at the beginning of the film, when Star Force is walking out to their ship to go on their first mission, very reminiscent of The Right Stuff when they're walking out to the ship to go out into space. And that wasn't enough homage to this film. They also, when she falls through and lands at the Blockbuster, she picks up The Right Stuff VHS case and takes a look at it. And I just thought that was kind of nice.
Yeah, something that she would be interested in too, as being a pilot. So, it was nice.